I'm Stacy Ellis, 28, and my family has always treated me like I don't really matter. My brother is the perfect one, a successful lawyer, always praised, always admired. My parents could do nothing but celebrate him. Me? I was the one holding everything together. I gave up my own dreams, worked hard, and tried my best to make them proud. But nothing I did was ever enough. They smiled at my brother and praised him for the smallest things. With me, it was always cold looks and harsh words. Why can't you be more like him? That line followed me everywhere, like I was always falling short. I stayed quiet. I kept trying. I believed that maybe, one day, they would finally see me. Then my brother's wedding came closer. I was given full responsibility for planning it, every detail, every arrangement. It all fell on me. I told myself this was my chance. If I made everything perfect, maybe they would finally appreciate me. But that hope didn't last. The night before the wedding, we were all at the dinner table. My brother started demanding expensive things. Luxury bands, imported flowers, things that were way beyond the budget. I said we couldn't afford it. That's when everything exploded. My parents got angry, their voices sharp and cruel. Then they said something I never expected. The best gift you can give your brother's wedding is to disappear from this family forever. The room went silent. My chest felt tight, but I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just stood up, took my keys, and walked out. The door closed behind me, and it felt like the end of everything. The wedding day came. Everything looked perfect at first. Guests were smiling, music was playing, and the celebration was in full swing. But in a single moment, it all started to fall apart. If it were you, would you stay to see it happen or walk away forever? Years before all this, I wasn't always like this. I was a freelance marketer with big dreams. I had just landed a $40,000 contract with a big supermarket chain. It was my chance to build my career and become independent. But then, my family's small grocery store in Erie, Pennsylvania started failing. Bills piled up, suppliers stopped coming. My parents were drowning in debt. My mom called me, her voice shaking. My dad admitted they might lose everything. I couldn't ignore that. So I gave up my contract. I called and canceled it. I chose my family instead. I worked day and night to save the store. I created ads, printed flyers, ran local promotions, and even built early online campaigns. I talked to suppliers, negotiated deals, and brought customers back. Slowly, it worked. The store started growing again. Sales improved. We started paying off debts. I was exhausted, but I thought maybe this time they would finally be proud of me. But I was wrong. One evening, my parents called a family meeting. I expected them to thank me. Instead, they gave the store control to my brother. "He's a lawyer," my mom said proudly. "He has the right mind for business." My brother hadn't helped at all. He had stayed at his job while I carried everything. Still, they gave him the credit. I just stood there, shocked. He smiled like he deserved it. My parents avoided my eyes, and I was left with nothing but silence. From that day on, I kept working at the store anyway. I told myself I just had to do more. If I proved myself again, they would finally see me. But they never did. Nathan, my best friend, saw what was happening. He told me I was destroying myself for people who didn't appreciate me. But I didn't listen. I kept hoping. And somehow, the store kept growing because of my work. Customers came back. Sales increased. Everything looked successful on the outside. But inside the family, I was still invisible. But he kept pushing. Every time I thought I had everything under control, Brent would show up with something new. A bigger request. A more expensive idea. Something completely out of reach. One evening, he came home excited and dropped his phone on the table. "I want fireworks at the reception," he said casually. "Real ones. Not those cheap indoor effects." I looked at him in disbelief. "Brent, that's not in the budget. We've already stretched everything." He barely even looked at me. "Then stretch it more," he said. "This is a wedding. Don't make it look cheap." My hands tightened around the papers I was holding. "This isn't about cheap or expensive. I said carefully. It's about what we can actually afford. That's when my mom stepped in again. Stacy, she said sharply, stop arguing. Just do what your brother wants. My dad didn't even look up from his phone. Same silence. Same indifference. It felt like, no matter what I said, I was invisible unless I was agreeing with them. So I went back to work. I cut more costs. I changed vendors again. I called in favors I didn't even have left. I pushed myself harder, even when I was already exhausted. I kept telling myself the same thing. If I make this perfect, they'll finally see me. Days turned into weeks. The wedding was getting closer, and I was running on almost no sleep. My savings were nearly gone, my stress was rising every hour, and still, nobody thanked me, not once. Instead, Brent kept showing off my work like it was his own idea. My parents praised him every time he spoke, even when I was the one who had done all the planning behind the scenes. One night, I overheard them talking in the kitchen. He's going to do great in life, my mom said proudly. My dad replied, he has leadership in him, always did. I stood outside the door, frozen. Everything I had done, every sacrifice, every sleepless night. And still, I was just background noise. That night, something inside me started to change. Not anger, not sadness, just clarity. For the first time, I started to see the truth I had been avoiding for years. No matter how much I gave, it was never going to be enough for them. And the wedding was about to prove it one more time. Lobster tails, expensive champagne, and a high-end photographer. All of it came out of nowhere, like money didn't mean anything. I finally put my fork down. Brent, I said slowly, we've already finalized the menu. We agreed on a budget weeks ago. He didn't even look up from his phone. Change it, he said simply. I want it better. Something inside me snapped, but I still tried to stay calm. Better isn't the issue, I said. We don't have the budget for this anymore. I've already used most of my savings covering your requests. That finally got his attention. He looked at me like I was being difficult on purpose. You're always bringing up money, he said coldly. It's embarrassing. This is my wedding. Figure it out. My chest tightened. I turned to my parents, hoping, just once, they would back me up. But my mom only sighed. Stacy, don't make this stressful, she said. Just do what your brother wants. My dad added without even looking at me. It's one day. Stop arguing. One day, as if I hadn't been working for months. As if I hadn't spent every night planning, every dollar I had, every bit of energy I owned. I looked around the table. Brent didn't care. My parents didn't care. Even Lindsay looked uncomfortable but stayed silent. And suddenly I realized something clearly for the first time. No matter how much I gave them, I would never be enough. I pushed my chair back slowly. I've done everything I can, I said quietly. Brent finally scoffed. Don't start being dramatic now. But I didn't respond. I stood up, walked to my room, and started packing. My hands were steady. No tears, no begging. Just a strange calm I had never felt before. Behind me, I could hear them still talking at the table, like nothing was happening. Like I was just stepping out of the room, not out of their lives. But for me, something had already ended, and the wedding was only one day away. The next morning, I woke up with their words still burning in my mind. Vanish from this family forever. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my phone. My savings app was still open. $10,000. Every dollar I had left. All tied up in deposits for Brent's wedding. The caterer, the florist, the band, everything had been paid for by me. I had made their perfect day possible, and the night before, they had told me I was nothing. I took a slow breath and kept staring at the screen. For years, I had told myself the same lie. If I do more, they'll change. If I sacrifice more, they'll finally see me. But all I had ever gotten in return was more demands and less respect. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Brent was probably still asleep, dreaming about his perfect wedding. My parents were likely preparing breakfast like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't walked out of their lives last night. I opened my laptop. One by one, I started going through the wedding bookings, venue contract, catering service, band agreement, photographer deposit. Every single thing had my name attached to it, and every single thing had a cancellation option. My fingers paused for a moment. This wasn't anger anymore, it was clarity. I opened the first contract and clicked cancel, then the next, and the next. Each click felt heavier at first, then lighter. Like something inside me was finally coming back together after being broken for years. By the time I finished, the wedding they had been building up for months no longer existed in my hands. I closed the laptop slowly. My phone started ringing. Brent. I didn't answer. It rang again and again. Then came messages. What did you do? Call me now. You're ruining everything. I looked at the screen, my expression steady. For once, I wasn't shaking. For once, I wasn't afraid of losing them. Because I already had. Joyce's voicemail kept repeating in my head. You've ruined everything. Jeffrey's voice followed right after. You're a disgrace to this family. But by then, something in me had already shut off. Guilt used to be automatic for me. So did overthinking. So did trying to fix things that were never my responsibility alone. Now there was just silence. I sat on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by half-packed boxes. Clothes, books, a laptop, a life that no longer fit where it started. Erie didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a place where I had spent years trying to earn love that was never going to come. Nathan's words stayed with me. You're stronger than they know. I didn't feel strong, I just felt done. The next morning, I woke up early. The air outside was cold and still. My phone was still blowing up with messages I didn't read. Brent's name kept appearing. My parents, too. I turned the phone face down. For the first time, I wasn't reacting to them. I was choosing myself. I finished packing what was left. I cleaned the small space I was leaving behind. Not because I owed it to anyone, but because I wanted closure in my own way. By afternoon, I stood near the window with my bag by my side. One-way ticket. Asheville. A place where no one knew my name and no one expected me to carry their failures. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Brent. I didn't open it. Instead, I deleted the chat thread, one by one, my parents. Brent's, the noise, gone. Not dramatically, not loudly, just quietly erased from reach. A weight lifted, small but real. That evening, I stepped onto the bus. The seat was by the window. As the city slowly moved past me, I didn't feel like I was running away. For the first time in years, I felt like I was moving forward. Behind me, everything they had built on my sacrifices was collapsing. But ahead of me, there was finally space to breathe. Shirley, the bakery owner, was my anchor in Asheville. Her shop, with its warm lighting, wooden tables, and the constant smell of fresh pastries, slowly became my second workspace. I'd sit there with my laptop, sketching out campaigns, answering client emails, and planning ideas between cups of coffee she kept refilling without asking. You're always working, she'd say sometimes, setting a plate of something fresh beside me. And you're always feeding me, I'd reply, finally smiling more often than I used to. Life didn't feel loud anymore. It didn't feel like I was constantly proving something to people who refused to see it. It felt steady, real. One afternoon, Shirley sat across from me while the bakery was quiet. You know, she said, watching me type, you don't flinch anymore when your phone rings. I paused for a moment, realizing she was right. A few months ago, every notification used to make my chest tighten. I'd expect another demand, another insult, another reminder of who I used to be in Erie. Now, I just checked it calmly. It wasn't fear anymore, it was work. Clients, life. That night, I looked out at the Blue Ridge Mountains from my small apartment window. The same view I used to think was temporary now felt like mine. No family meetings, no impossible expectations, no being told I was never enough, just silence and peace. But Erie wasn't finished with its aftermath yet. Even if I had stopped looking back, the past had a way of showing its results on its own, and eventually I would hear just how far everything had fallen after I left. Shirley still had a way of grounding me in the simplest moments. She'd slide a warm muffin across the counter without a word, just a small smile. Fuel for the grinned, she'd say. Like it was nothing, but it meant everything. It was the kind of care I had never had in Erie. No conditions, no expectations, no scorekeeping, just kindness. For the first time, I started believing I wasn't hard to love. I had just been surrounded by people who refused to show it. Then the letter came. It showed up one quiet morning, tucked between bills and client mail. The handwriting on the envelope was unmistakable. Joyce. My hand slowed as I opened it. She wrote that she was sick, seriously sick. She said she and my father were struggling, that everything had fallen apart after I left, and then came the real message underneath it all. They needed me back. They needed my help. They needed me to fix things again. I read it once. Then again. My stomach tightened, not from fear, but from recognition. This wasn't the first time I had been pulled back with guilt. Shirley noticed right away. "You okay?" she asked, wiping down the counter. I handed her the letter. She read it quietly, then set it down with a sigh. "That's not a plea," she said. "That's pressure." I didn't answer right away. I didn't answer because part of me still remembered the version of me that would gone back immediately. The version that would have dropped everything to fix a family that never stood beside me when I needed them. Shirley shook her head. "People don't suddenly change when they need something," she added. Later that night, I called Nathan. He didn't even hesitate. "Don't go back," he said firmly. "They're pulling you into the same cycle again." And for the first time, I didn't argue. I didn't second-guess myself for hours afterward. I just listened. The next morning, I wrote my reply. Short, clear, final. "I wish you well, but I won't be returning." No explanation, no defense. No opening for more manipulation. I mailed it that same day. Then I blocked their numbers. It wasn't dramatic. No breakdown. No final confrontation. Just a quiet decision and letting their chaos reach me. That evening, I told Shirley. She nodded like she already expected it. "You're choosing yourself," she said gently. "That takes real strength." Nathan said the same thing later that week. "You're free now," he told me. "Don't unlearn that." And slowly, I didn't. Asheville kept filling my life with things that didn't demand I shrink myself. I joined hiking groups and climbed trails where the air felt too wide for old memories to follow. I started painting again, messy watercolors of mountains and skies I used to think I didn't have time for. My apartment stopped feeling temporary. Plants grew on the windowsill. Books stacked on shelves I actually used. The space began to reflect me instead of what I was surviving. Work grew too. A major contract with the Regional Tourism Board came in, stretching me in new ways but paying me more than I had ever earned before. And this time, I wasn't working to be seen by people who refused to look. I was working because I loved what I was building. One night at Shirley's Bakery, I sat surrounded by familiar faces, regulars who greeted me like I belonged there. A client came in just to thank me for a campaign that brought real results to his shop. I didn't overthink it. I just smiled. Because something important had finally settled inside me. My value wasn't something I had to earn through suffering. It was already mine. And for the first time, I wasn't trying to prove it to anyone who used to doubt it. I was just living it.